Okay, so we learned a few terms that go along with using value and using basically light in class. And so a few of those terms were highlights, midtones, core shadows, reflected highlights, cast shadows, and the light source. And so we're actually going to go ahead and apply these to this value scale here, kind of try to figure out, identify what would be the core shadow, what would be the reflected highlight, so on and so forth. And then right here on this sphere where each of these shadows or highlights would be found, okay? So this guy right here, this is box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, okay? This box here is known as the highlight. So this is box 1, okay? From box 2 all the way to box 5, these are the mid tones. And then boxes 6 and 7, these are the shadows, with 7 being the darkest shadow. Now, we went ahead and we have already identified the highlights, great. We know that these right here, 2 to 5, these are the midtones, awesome, lovely, okay? We went ahead and we identified the shadows, but we need to distinguish the difference between the core shadow and the cast shadow. The core shadow is typically one of the darker shadows, one of the really darker shadows. So this one right here, the core shadow, would actually be number 7. Core shadow. Okay. The cast shadow would be from number 5 all the way to number 7. This is cast shadow. So from number 5 to number 7. The light source, we're not going to see it anywhere here, so this one is not applied here, but we will apply it to the actual sphere when we're placing all of these things. But we do have a reflected highlight, and number 2, this one right here, this would be that reflected highlight. Okay. And so what we're going to do is now we're going to use these terms and we're going to place them on this sphere here, all right? So first what we need to do is we need to identify the light source. So I'm going to say that the light source is right here. This is where the sun is. Okay, so this is the light source. If the light is hitting like this, that means that the shadow that this sphere is producing will now be over here on the right side. Okay, so if the light source is on the left, the shadow is now on the right side. If the light source is on the right side, the shadow would then be on the left side. Okay, from here, a few things happen. Since the light source is right at the very top, right here towards the top of this object, this right here, this is where the highlight would be, this one right here. So number 1 would be right there. Okay, what happens is as the light source, right, as the light starts to go around this object, right, the light is being dispersed differently onto this sphere. Okay, and so what's happening is now this value here, number 2, this is where we would see that. But because number 2 is also the reflected highlight, we would actually see that reflected highlight right here. Reflected highlight. So number 2 would also be found right here. It's because the light, as it goes down onto the surface of wherever this is sitting, it bounces back into the object. Okay? So light bounces back onto object. Okay? All of this right here, this part of the body, is now the mid-tone. So right here, this is mid-tone number 3. This right here, mid-tone number 4. Right here in this area, this would actually be the core shadow. Core shadow. And so then we would see number 7 and number 7 here. On this side right here, where the light source is still kind of being absorbed, right, because it's towards the top, this is now towards the bottom, so it's receiving less of that light. This would still be mid-tone number 4, mid-tone number 5 right there. Okay. Now that we have all of these things, the only one that's missing is the cast shadow. This guy right here, this entire thing is the cast shadow. It starts from really dark, so right here, from really dark, this is number 7, and as it goes outward, it kind of alleviates. So then this is number 6, and then this is number 5. Okay. So now we see how the light source kind of manipulates where each of these values are going to go onto an actual object, this object being a sphere. All right, if you need to take a look at any of these things again, just rewind the video.